Hey Lydia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, thanks so much. So let's start by tell everybody who you are and what you're all about.
My name's Lydia Lassila. In my previous life, just recently retired. I was an aerial skier, so I've been to 5 Winter Olympics, gold medal at the Vancouver 2010 Olympics, and a bronze at 2014. I'm a mum of two. I run a company called Body Ice, where we manufacture ice and heat packs for injuries, which is a given how many injuries I've had in my career as a sports person. And now moving into the space of one of my other passions, which is kind of high performance, but with mental skills, like really improving and fine tuning your mental skill set so that you can kind of cope with every situation, whether you're an athlete or you're a business executive or stay at home mum that wants to start their own small business. I think the same process really applies for high performance across the board. So that's kind of a real passion of mine that I'm getting into now with workshops and at speaking events and kind of boutique and bespoke conferences and things like that to really cater for that, I think, hole in the market, that real need.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you're so right that there's an unbelievable synergy between sports and business and life, really, right? Like the things that you accomplish while performing and being preparing to perform and to be a performer in sports or whatever it is you're trying to perform at. Every single one of those things that you do have life lessons that are so valuable.
Yeah, and a champion in sport versus a champion in business or the arts, they kind of, there's so many attributes are very similar. Obviously the whole resilience piece and just having that picture of themselves, that vision that's really strong and compelling. And they will work to find a way to realize it. And I don't think it matters what industry you're in. That process really is. It's people take a different route, but that desire is in every champion person.
Yeah.
They want to get the most out of that themselves, and they want to realize their potential. Comes
Right.
down to that.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned going through injuries, and I know anyone that's followed you knows all about that. Talk to me about what it's like to go through such a crazy injury. I've gone through some myself, and what I've learned from these injuries is that it really begins to shape you for who you are as a person, and you start to use these injuries as I want to say like a springboard to move forward and to become stronger than you were before. But I know you've gone through some crazy ones. Tell everybody what it's like to go through them. How do you bounce back from them and what it does to your mindset going forward?
Yeah, you're right. I think injuries can either break you emotionally and physically and mentally, or they can bolster you and set the tone for where you're kind of going and kind of where your quitting response is. We all have a different quitting response. When a response where we just throw up our hands and say, that's enough, I can't really take anymore. So I had a lot of injuries earlier on in my career because I did a lot of things wrong, I suppose. I had all the desire and I knew where I wanted, but I didn't really have the strategy. So I went all in, guns blazing, overtrained, jumped through injuries, which then turned into major injuries. Didn't periodize, didn't really, pretty much treated my body as an aerial skier like a punching bag, and had little respect of it, not understanding, I guess, when you're young, that to have longevity in a sport which is dynamic and as high impact as aerial skiing, you need to start to look after it for it to look after you. So
Right.
I learned that the hard way. I had back-to-back knee reconstructions in 2006,
Wow.
and I ended up blowing my knee for the second time in 6 months at the Torino 2006 Olympics in the semi-finals. So that was quite traumatizing because I'd blown it 6 months before the Olympics, did the rehab, had this radical surgery where they were using like a donor tissue in my knee so that I could recover quickly, try and make it back in time, which I did. I made it back, did the work, really felt mentally prepared as well. and then just kind of flew over to Torino Olympics, and my knee blew up like a balloon. It just decided it wasn't going to take it, and so I ended up jumping through it, despite it being quite cranky, and ended up, just rupturing on my final jump in the semi-finals. So that was probably the biggest turning point in my career, because it was one of the lowest points in my career. And up to that point, I'd had a lot of success in terms of I progressed really quickly through the sport. It took me 18 months from learning how to ski to being at my first Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City in 2002. So I went from zero skill to being quite at the Olympics,
Wow.
My progression was really fast, too fast. But I had success, and I was in my second year ever competing, which was my second year ever jumping. I was number 2 in the world and winning World Cups, and really enjoying that, but beating my body up. And so I kind of felt at that point this real confusion. I'm like, I'm trying so hard. Like, I had this limiting belief, I suppose, that I probably got from my parents. You work hard, you'll be successful. You work hard, you'll be successful. You work hard, you'll be successful. Right. And that's drilled into us, isn't it? And so that's what I believe. I'm like, I'm working so hard. I can't work any harder, and why is this shit still happening to me?
Right.
And you're getting injured. I could be so much better. Why doesn't it happen to anyone else?
Right.
Third, probably because you're doing 3 times more jumping than anyone else. You're jumping through injuries. You're not pacing yourself. You're going too fast, And these are all the things that took me a while to figure out. But it really was the straw in the Torino 2006 Olympics, when I blew my knee out and I knew I was going to have 12 months of surgery and rehab up my sleeve before I'd return back to sport. And I knew that at that point, I knew it was going to be difficult. And a lot of people wrote me off. They didn't think I'd kind of come back from it or come back as strong. So I kind of silently, vowed that I wouldn't let that injury end my career, that I'd find a way to achieve my major goals, which was to win the Olympics, to be the best female aerial skier that had ever lived, to do these, triple somersaults to the quality that the men were doing, and close that gap between male and female aerial skiers. And that was so compelling for me that I could see through that injury and that period of, it was disaster. It felt like my whole world had crashed down, but that vision was it was blurry and it was far away, but it was there. And so that was kind of the period of time where I'm like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I'm constantly injured. I could be really good at this sport. I can be the best. I know I can. I'm working my ass off. Why is this stuff happening to me? I had that such a victim kind of mentality, and that's when I started working with Jeffrey Hodges, and who you've
we just had him on the show. Yeah. It was great.
And I'd been reading his material and listening to his visualization tracks for a few years already, and his content really resonated with me. And so I contacted him and I said, look, I've got to work with you. And so we got started straight away, and I kind of met with him, and and he's like, well, what do you want? I'm like, well, I'm always injured and this shit keeps happening to me, and he just shut me down straight. And he's like, oh really, you're always injured, you're all your life have you been injured? And I'm like, no, but really had a lot of bad luck in the last. Oh, don't talk about luck to me. You've created everything that's come your way. And I'm like, oh, how dare you asshole. And he was 100% right. Mm-hmm. And we got to work, and it started as I developed my awareness about myself, which I thought I had pretty good awareness. Yeah, maybe I had really good body awareness and where I was in the air, and I could make myself compete really well despite being in constant pain. I had a lot of really good things, but I didn't realise that, I was pushing at times where I should have been pulling back. Had to change that kind of limiting belief to working smarter, not working harder.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
if I would just add that I've interviewed a couple other athletes and even Olympic athletes, and some of the things they told me is that a lot of times, whenever, regardless whether you're an athlete or not, a lot of times we think that the more we do, or like you said, the harder you work, the more successful you become. But sometimes, especially when it comes to sports and performing, sometimes less is more. And
Yes.
even more specifically when it comes to injuries, right? Like when you tweak your ankle and you're like, no, I'm just going to fight through it. I'm just going to, whatever. I'm stronger than that, right? And we tell
Yeah.
ourselves that we can get
Yeah.
through it. And we try to convince ourselves that it's nothing. And by going and fighting through it makes us stronger, is
Mm.
actually worse and could be more detrimental. And sometimes could even be a career-ending injury because we just didn't stop and we
Yeah.
weren't willing to accept the fact that we needed to stop and rest.
Correct. And when I was coming through the ranks, I was it was a pilot program in Australia to recruit ex-gymnasts and teach them how to ski. And so I was a guinea pig. And so I actually didn't have anyone around me either. So that's where team comes into things, and the right team and the right coaching support. I didn't have anyone around me that could just, rein me in and go, hey, you don't have to do 3 times more volume than anyone. Let's just cut it down to, okay, if you want to go double, but let's just make sure quality is there. You're getting your rest and recovery. We're on top of any niggles, things like that. I didn't have anyone like that.
Right.
So they just let me go and burn myself to the ground. And because I was achieving success, it was kind of like, she's all right. And so bad, bad
Right.
management. And now they do things, a lot smarter because they've learned, through me. And yeah, having the right team around you, that guidance is so important when you're a younger athlete, because you don't know what you don't know. Now, if I could have a conversation with my 18-year-old self, wow, yeah, we'd do things a lot differently. Like, I'm an expert in it now, but I
Yeah.
wasn't then. And I didn't have an expert around me at the time, which sucked
Right.
in
And well,
hindsight.
I mean, you got Jeffrey, which I'm sure was very helpful, right?
Yeah, so once I started working with Jeffrey, things started to click. I started to gain this awareness about myself, my thought patterns, which obviously led to behaviors, which led to habits. We started breaking down all these limiting beliefs that I had about myself, that I'm always injured, that hard work makes it easy,
Right.
that, all these kind of things that were so heavily ingrained in me. And we just tweaked them. We shifted them a little bit. No,
Yeah.
don't work harder, work smarter. you know, the past doesn't equal my future, all these kind of things that help me focus on the future self concept, that future Lydia that I wanted to be,
Right.
rather than the one that had been through some stuff in the past that was frustrated and wasn't able to find a way. And so that was a really big turning point. The fact that I then, in that year off, worked on, obviously my vision was really strong, and that's something that I've always never had any issues with. Goals, they've always been really there, like clear,
Right.
but the strategy, and being able to break those down into bite-sized pieces so that they weren't overwhelming was the next step for me. And that was a really important step, because I'm not inherently a list person. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I do things spontaneously, but I had to learn how to be more detailed and more planned and a list person, So I had these big goals, bright and amazing, but they were overwhelmed, broke down into, from the vision down into smaller, like major milestone goals, into then focus goals, into challenge goals, into then a daily goal, so that every day I just had one little thing to work on that would
Yeah.
move me closer, and
Yeah.
having it set out like that meant that I had full control of my destiny and what I was doing, and any kind of little diversion was easily corrected and steered back on path. And it was almost during that period of time leading from 2006 to 2010 that I was kind of, everything I wrote down happened, or everything that we'd
Wow.
planned for it happened exactly how
That's
I
amazing.
wanted it to. And it felt like I was kind of being pulled towards this future Lydia that I was visualizing every day.
Mm-hmm.
So visualization, breaking down these massive goals into small bite-sized pieces, and changing these limiting beliefs were probably the 3 key areas that I worked on that year, and they were instrumental.
Wow. Wow. And yeah, that's amazing. And one of the things you mentioned just now is the baby steps. And I've talked about this a lot in my podcast and even with my clients, that sometimes we have a goal that we're trying to reach, and it's scary because it's big, right? And it's like, oh, I want to run a marathon, or I want to become an Olympic whatever, an Olympic athlete or anything. And it just seems so far away and so hard. But when you just break it down and just say, just do one of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, just one, it's magical how amazingly um, uh, uh, you could attain that goal so much easier than thinking about the future of what it is that you have to accomplish. So like I say sometimes, just do one push-up. Like, don't think about trying to do 100 push-ups, because that's too much. And you're not in that place right now that you're able to do 100 push-ups. Start with one push-ups and add one push-up every day and watch what happens. It's really, really incredible.
Correct. And that was kind of one of my biggest, obviously I wanted to win the Olympics. And so that was a huge milestone goal for me. And one of the challenge goals that I was going to face was how to keep healthy and injury free. That was a huge issue for me throughout my whole career up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so breaking that down, okay, well, how do you stay healthy and injury free in a sport like aerial skiing? Well, it meant that every week I had to focus on my recovery sessions, my rehab, get the physio that I need, eating, nutrition, hydration, ice baths. It was encompassing everything. I focused on a daily basis, like, just remind. I had one cue: remind myself just to be smart, don't take any unnecessary risks. Be smart, don't take any unnecessary risks. So that I'll get to, jump 10 and I'm like, I could probably go another one, but is it the right? Do you know what I mean? Should I
Yeah.
push for one more, or is that enough today? And
Yeah.
I can make these really smart decisions, whereas before I would have just kept pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just one cue, be smart, don't take unnecessary risks. That helped me keep injury free or on top of them anyway.
Yeah, and if I can, I want to just add on that, because I know that you talked about doing what's smart and not necessarily versus what's harder or what's the right thing to do. But I would just want to quote you real quick, and you tell me what you think about this, because I think a lot of who you've become as an athlete is based on this quote that I'm about to say that you've said. Winning in Olympics was always more important than no, I'm sorry. Winning the Olympics was important to me, but going for greatness in a sport and doing something that no one has ever done was always more important. Talk to me, because I know that you've gone through stages in your career where you've decided to do something that took guts, and that you knew might not turn out the way you wanted it to, but you were willing to do it because you knew that becoming great and doing what no one else has ever done, which essentially to me is what success is. Whether you accomplished that thing or not, the fact that you did it and the fact that you went for it and trusted yourself is personal success to me. So talk to me about what's that?
It's very fulfilling for me too.
Mm-hmm.
And people see success differently. And I always saw success as, an Olympic gold medal. And I thought, if I achieve that, I'm hanging up my boots. I'm happy, especially what I've gone through. I think that's what kind of tops off as being successful. You reach the pinnacle in your sport, you win Olympic gold medal. And so that was kind of my mission, my milestone between 2006 and 2010. And I did it. I won an Olympic gold medal. And I'm looking at my medal. I'm like, this is fantastic. But is this it?
Yeah.
Is this where I'm capped out?
Yeah.
Is this my maximum? Is this my potential? And instantly it was like, no way. One, I don't want to stop doing something that I love. Why should I stop doing something that I love just because I've reached the pinnacle?
Right.
What is the pinnacle? There's more that I want to do. And it was kind of like a real, it was the night I got my medal. I had it around my neck. I'm like, this isn't it. I saw my whole life flash before me, and all the things that had kind of happened, and from being a childhood and having that dream of, I was in gymnastics as a kid and going through all the injuries, and the people that supported me and believed in me, they were all in this kind of medal, and I'm like, this isn't it for me. And the next campaign towards the Sochi 2014 Olympics, I wanted to back up and win and back win back-to-back gold medals. That was definitely one of my goals. But as it kind of drew nearer, I knew that I was in a position and I had an opportunity to do a trick no woman had done before, and that was really important to me. It was to do the quad twisting triple somersault and close the gap. When I started the sport in year 2000, the gap was huge. There was very few women doing triple somersaults, and they were average at that. They were not pretty, and so I made it kind of my mission to lift that standard, to use the men who were the best in the world as my benchmark, as a standard, and I wanted to jump to that. And so as the games drew near and I'd practiced this trick on water and I knew I could do it, it became way more important for me to do that trick at the Olympics than winning back-to-back gold. And so I was willing, when it came to it, in the final jump of a 6-hour competition, it was a bit of a marathon.
Wow.
The format was different. My 13th triple for the night, I had a choice. I was in the middle round, four competitors left. One of us was going to go home with a fourth and the rest were going to podium, and it would just depend on what colour. And I had a choice. Do I back down? Do I do something easier that I know my landing percentage is higher on, or do I go for it? I'd only done 2 before in training on snow, so it was really kind of new, and so I decided then that, well, I decided the day before. I was sitting doing video analysis with my coach Mish, and he was a really important piece in my success, and because he always bought into my vision, he always bought in and believed what I was trying to do. And I met a lot of resistance with my federation and other administrators who said, Lydia, you don't need to do triple somersaults to win.
Right.
Just do what you need to do to win. And it just did not sit well with me, because I wanted to do the jumps that I believed I could do. And I wanted to change the standard and raise the glass ceiling. So he was on board with that, which was so important. And we went forward together, and with Jeff as well, and all the people in my team. And yeah, the night before the finals in Sochi, we're sitting down and he's like, okay, you make it to the super final, the final 4, you're going to make it through all these elimination rounds, so you can't stuff up, and you make it through. What do you want to do? And I looked at him, I'm like, we're going for it. He's like, yeah, we're going for it. And so we knew already that, if I had the opportunity to jump in the medal round, I'd already made it that far, we're going for broke. So yeah, it was scary. My 3rd attempt ever, and we went for it and didn't nail the landing, but did an amazing jump in the air. It was just a bit too fast, a bit too big, and came away with a bronze medal. But and it felt that performance, what I did that night of competing for 6 hours straight. I was a mum of a 2-year-old, and I'd just done the hardest trick a woman had ever done before. I came away feeling like I'd won, and yeah, another gold medal around my neck would have been magical. But if I hadn't have gone for that trick, I would have regretted it.
Yeah, and what I hear in that is that you could have settled for gold and made everyone else happy, or you could have gone for the jump that would have made you feel fulfilled. And you could have said, screw everybody else. I'm doing it because I know that this is going to make me achieve my max potential and become who I really feel is the best me. And it reminds me of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan used to say, one of the best basketball players that ever played the game, he used to say, everybody else is trying to compete against me, but I'm competing against who I can be, which is why that's what makes me the best. And when you tell your story, that's exactly what I hear is I'm competing against something that I can be versus, I can get gold. Anyone can get gold. Like that's just, you go through the motions, you win gold. But to try to accomplish something that no one else has ever done, that's real accomplishment.
And prove that it's possible to other people coming up through, and that's, right. For me, that was equally important, to provide that kind of inspiration for the next gen, to just say, hey, we don't have to set our standard down here.
Right.
You don't have to do the minimum to win. Let's change this and let's prove what we can do, that men and women can actually jump at the same level. Um, and we're still working on that. We create our own glass ceilings as well.
It's a lifelong process, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So before we're gonna do like a rapid fire questions where I'm just gonna throw questions at you and you'll answer. So right before that, just one last question. Talk to me about what is going through your head the weeks, minutes, seconds before that jump where you have 5 seconds of performing essentially that is years long of preparation that comes down to a matter of seconds. Talk to me about that.
I think when you get to that point in time, it's so important to have like almost routine thoughts, like whether you approach it for training and competition. My approach was always consistent and the same. And if you train how to control your thoughts and be aware of them, firstly, awareness, and then train your responses and train what distractions I suppose you want to allow in and what other ones you want to deflect. And I think keeping your cool and keeping your focus at a major event is all about distraction control and what you let in and what you deflect outwards. So whether you visualize, kind of someone said something, or the crowd is crazy loud, or a competitor has said a negative comment to throw you off, or you're having some negative comments, in your head, your conversations with yourself. You can, okay, one, you're aware of it. All right, I'll take that information, but what do I do with it?
Right.
Do I let it wash off me like, water off a duck's back? That's what I would sometimes do. Just like, I'm just going to let that flow right off me. And you can wait over there because you're not going to help me right now.
Right.
Okay, this thought or behavior or reaction isn't going to help me right now. And then it's a matter of bringing it back down to, okay, what is going to help me right now? Where am I? I'm here. I'm about to do this next jump. What do I need to focus on? Okay, I've got some cues. Hit your takeoff or whatever it might be in your sport or your performance, and focus on that. Slow it down and focus on that. Technique, slow it down, focus on that, and that's the kind of routine talk that I would get myself into. And when I did that successfully, I'd have a great performance. When I let other distractions come into me and limiting thoughts and beliefs or comments, then that's when my performance went.
Yeah, and it's incredible how the things that we do and the way we act is really all stems from right here, right in your mind. And the things that you think about, the thoughts directly control how you show up and perform as a person, as an athlete, as a parent, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as a regular employee. It all stems from your mind. And it's amazing how undervalued the idea of training our mind is, right? Like if we just train our mind to think certain things and, like you said, deflect some thoughts and accept some thoughts, the ones that are positive and the ones that are beneficial for whatever it is you're trying to do, that's essentially the best way to achieve whatever it is you're trying to get.
Right. And some people do it naturally and some people need to learn it and add it to their kind of skill set or their tool bag, just like we train physical technique and we repeat it until it's ingrained, it's a motor pattern. It's the same with our thoughts and reactions to certain situations and events. And some people, again, it comes naturally. Some people need to really work on this stuff. So just having that awareness is really step one. Like, I think like it's so important to be able to have someone that can point that out to you, and then you can get to work on it.
Right.
We use mindfulness as a really trendy word these days.
For sure.
And it does mean awareness, essentially, to be aware of our thoughts, and that's step one in terms of what I think. If you want to take that further, and develop skills to be able to turn any situation around, that's the next kind of piece of work. And then be able to execute that on a daily basis. Because some days you show up and you don't feel 100%. You know, you're tired, you're injured, or whatever, but you can instantly change that state. You know, Tony Robbins talks about state all the time.
Yep.
You know, you can pick yourself up, you can breathe, you can change your state, you can change your mood instantaneously. So people need to learn how to do that.
Right.
Not just be mindful. Everyone can be mindful,
Right.
but how do we change different, you know, how do we process information, and how do we choose what to take in and what to deflect, and give me the skills to do that, you know. And that's what I think is kind of really missing at the moment. It's like everyone's really getting this awareness about themselves, but how are we going to process that information and make change to make, you know, a better version of yourself?
Right. And it's like mindfulness is a concept, and then putting it into action is a whole nother game. And I think that's what you're saying, is like there's that disconnect where, yeah, anyone can be mindful, anyone can meditate, but how is that actually playing a role in your life where it's affecting your life and how you show up and how you act as a person?
Correct. And how, yeah, whether it's in your workplace or on the sporting field, or about to give a keynote performance. And it's, you know, it really is the same process. Think, behavior, habits.
Yeah.
You know, how we
Yeah.
think is then correlates in our behavior, which if we do that enough and routinely, we develop habits. So how do you break the chain? You've got to start with your thinking. How do you do that? You've got to have awareness of what you're thinking. You've got to pay
Absolutely.
attention to what you're thinking,
Yep.
and go through that process, that self-awareness piece and evaluation and analysis. And Jeffrey Hodges did that with me. And so that's something now where, you know, really, I you know, realize the power of it. And I have a really amazing tool bag that I can draw on in business, in life, in parenting, that I can share to my kids as well, which is so important as well. You know, and it can be applied to every facet, every person with a brain, which is everybody.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, so it's just what boggles me right now is just, especially in the corporate world, you know, everyone wants to implement a health and wellness piece within their organization. And they're telling everyone, be mindful, be mindful, be mindful. But how do we develop skills to then improve, you know, and execute our performances better?
Yeah. Awesome. So we have like 5 minutes. So I'm going to throw some questions at you, and hopefully we can get through all of them. What is the concept of fear to you, and how do you deal with it?
I love fear. It's really useful because it's always trying to tell you something. It's always trying to, like, bring something to your attention, to make you aware of something. It's trying to protect you. So I kind of see it when I feel it. I'm like, okay, hey, how you going? Nice you've showed up. What do you want me to know? What do you want me to focus on? You know, what do I need to be paying my attention on now to keep me safe? So fear is great.
Love that. What does success mean to you?
It's a constant evolution, and it's constantly evolving, and it means constant improvement, maxing out my potential in everything, really. Like and not just that, but now as an adult and a past athlete, I think being able to live a really balanced lifestyle is successful for me. So for me, success means I can work from home from anywhere in the world. I can live in a lifestyle that I love, that affords me to spend lots of time with my kids, and I'm doing what I love. So that's, you know, successful to me.
Yeah. If you could send one message to the world, what would it be?
One message to the world. I think any difficult or overwhelming task can be broken down into bite-sized pieces, so that every day we can just work on something small that's going to, you know, propel us towards our end game.
Yeah. What's
Whether
some?
it's a
Yeah.
plastic bottle that you can not buy, then hey, that's a step forward.
Yeah. What's something you wish you knew at 21?
Wish I knew at 21 the importance of the right team. Yeah, having surrounded myself with an A team earlier would have meant I would have avoided a lot more suffering and pain.
What's your favorite book or movie or both?
um, my favorite book is probably The Celestine Prophecy. It's just got so much really cool pieces of wisdom in there. And my favorite movies are the Rocky box set because I'm an 80s girl and I religiously traveled around with those on my hard drive so that depending on my mood, I'd pull out whatever I needed. So if I really needed to fire up and pick myself up, Rocky 3 would go on. If I wanted to go out, the next day and do something amazing, Rocky 4, like, so I'd choose, and it kind of just, it's been part of me growing up and something I always revert back to.
Yeah, yeah, and he has an amazing story. Stallone, the way he got that movie and wrote it, it's incredible. Well, who's your role model?
Um, I have various role models in business and sport. I'm constantly inspired by Federer, and I know a lot of people are, but I'm the same age as him, and to see him, our careers kind of started at the same timeline as well. So to see him just, become that Michael Jordan of tennis,
Yeah,
you can clearly see that he's benchmarking himself against his best version of himself, and he's never set any limits, not for age, not because he's got a family, not because what people think he should do, and that he's won everything and he should retire. He wants more, and he wants to kind of see the best version of himself. So yeah, and how he conducts himself as well is really important. Um, to me as well as a sports person, he's just got the whole package.
um, what's the next big thing for you? Next big goal?
My next big goal is really defining my next why, and I think I'm getting really close to that right now. And it does revolve around the mental health and wellness space, even though that's a generic word. But it really is giving people these skill sets of being able to control, manage their thoughts, and then that can be reflected in their behavior and cope. Give them the skills to cope with adversity and still find that end game really compelling. So whether, again, it doesn't matter if it's sport or business or life, it's the same for everyone and would go through the same process. So
Yeah.
that I want to work with Jeff on that, and together we're creating some workshops and some conferences to help people do that. So that's really exciting because my why, I guess, is to help people, really, to help people find their end game, find their potential.
That's the best why anyone could have, right? The ability to give to others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very compelling. So I'm really excited about that. I love my business, Body Ice, and I love my family, and I love my lifestyle. And, to come out of sport of 20 years as a really wholesome person um, is really great. I've transitioned really well because I've prepared for the transition for a long time. So I feel really equipped to kind of, park sport over there, but bring its lessons to the
Yeah.
forefront and share through other avenues.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Where can people find more about you?
They can find me at lydialassila.com.au. I'm most active on Instagram, so that's just Lydia Lassila. Body Ice is my company, BODYICE.com. And stay tuned for some more exciting things with the whole mental training piece.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I know we didn't get a chance to talk about the documentary, but just give a real short synopsis of what that's about.
The Will to Fly is a book as well as a film, so on DVD or iTunes, and that tells a story. It follows me from to the lead up to the Sochi 2014 Olympics, and me doing that big move, the quad twisting triple somersault. It shows me, as a mother, as an athlete, um, and the past and my ghosts of the past, I suppose, and how I kind of conquered those to make it through to the end, and achieve that goal. So it's a pretty it's a nice, compelling story that they've cleverly crafted for a mainstream audience, and speaks to everybody.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And again, to me, that you've achieved something much greater than gold, and that's the personal mastery, the ability to go for something and to take the chance to achieve something that no one's ever done is a lot more valuable than doing something that someone else has done.
Yeah, I believe so. It's very fulfilling.
Awesome.
I have
Thanks
no
so much.
regrets.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. See you later.